I would say there is no time like the present. If you're thinking about doing something, you just need to go for it. Everybody's going to have failures and wins and losses and wins, and you make mistakes. And the sooner you can get started on that, instead of it just being something in the back of your mind, I think you should just go for it as soon as you can.
Hello and welcome to the We Built This Business podcast, the place for UK entrepreneurs and business owners who want to build a multi-million pound business. I'm Daniel O'Sullivan, founder of Red Cactus Events, Team Building Experiences and Shizoo Media. In this episode, I'm speaking with Nathan Angus, the co-founder of the Wildfire Experience Agency. I discussed with Nathan how he has built resilience after overcoming the many challenges in running a large events business over the last few years. Let's head over to the podcast. Today, I'm pleased to have Nathan Angus on the We Built This Business podcast, talking about the Wildfire Agency. Nathan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
So Nathan, let's start by talking about the Wildfire Agency. What is the Wildfire Agency do, and what is it? What size is the company today?
So we classify ourselves as sort of a full service experience agency, events agency, and there's 15 of us, 16 of us, because somebody started today, actually 16 of us who all work here full time, and we do lots of different events ranging from your team building and your motorized and conference events, through to incentive travel and product launches and everything like that. We've got a 20,000 square foot warehouse and a yard with some additional containers across the road. There's got various different things in it. So anything ranging from hovercrafts to life-size lion props to a 16-foot waterfall and crystal domes and many other different things.
So tell me about how do you get yourself buying a lion prop?
So we originally started just doing daytime activities, and then we moved into doing nighttime events. Clients asked us if we could do some nighttime entertainment for them on the conferences. So we then moved into sort of the casinos and stuff like that. And then we were like, right, we'll do James Bond for the casino. And then we're like, right, we'll do some other themes in Narnia and stuff. And then went, oh, you know what go really well with Narnia? A life-size lion prop. So we now have 3 life-size lion props. But yeah, you end up buying that, you put it all together in a package, you sell it out to people. We always, on the way up, we always did this thing of saying we've got hovercrafts, we can sell hovercrafts, and then going, oh, right, we need to buy some hovercrafts now because we've so promised it to the clients, and then that's how you build it up, I suppose.
And that's how you end up with a 20,000 square foot warehouse with 3 lions, giraffes, everything goes in between.
Yes.
Lovely.
Lots of random things.
Right, well, let's go back, Nathan, to you leaving school. And how did that transition into you actually starting Wildfire?
So it's a bit of a long-winded story as to how I started, so please forgive me, I'll try and condense it a little bit. The way I got into events is when I was 12, my dad said that I had to get a Saturday job. So I was working for this guy who had a farm in Sheffield, and he did children's birthday parties on quad bikes. And then I worked for him every Saturday from sort of 11, 12 up to 14. And then he sold up to buy a pub. My old man was an engineer at the time. He bought these quad bikes and some buggies and stuff like that, something he could do on the side. And then we worked together. When I was doing my A-levels, I would miss lessons just so that I could go and instruct on quads or go and run an event or anything like that. And then I ended up I left school. I was going to go take a year out and go to university, started working in the business. And I was like, no, I don't want to go to university. I quite enjoy having money in my pocket and quite enjoy actually being in the events world. But when I was 18, my dad would either sack me or I would quit every month because we would argue that much. And then came back when I went off, did my own thing, but I was a civil servant. I was this, I was that. And we were known as Demon Wheelers back then. And then I came back when I was 21 and was like, right, we're going to seriously make a go of it. And then we rebranded as Wildfire about, I think it's 6 years ago now, because we had all these different brands we had Demon Wheelers for the motorized and the team building, themed evenings for the themed events, party prop hire for prop hire, well done events for conferences and all these different bits. And we're like, right, it's getting confusing even for us who were selling it. So we need to scale down. have one brand, and that's where Wildfire came from.
So I'm just going back to when you were 21, you came back into the business. So that was with your dad, essentially. It was just you two. So you started on the quad bikes. How did you build that up to, obviously, you're now a multifaceted events agency. Did you have a plan to do that, or was it something that's just naturally happened over time?
I think we always had a plan to grow as big as we could, and that's not a proper business plan or anything like that. I think it was when we started, we literally had nothing. We were like maxing out. My dad had some businesses before that had unfortunately gone bust, and so we weren't taking bank loans. We weren't doing anything like that. Like, I had a credit card, but we would max that out on stuff and then buy the equipment and then run the events and then pay the credit card off. So the plan was to sort of build up to be a good supplier in the industry, but then you get good clients and they ask you to do more and more. And then you just, with your knowledge of the industry, I'm 43 now, so been in the industry since I was 11 years old. That's quite a long time and you realize you can do different elements of it. And right, we can do the evening, right, we can do the conference, right, we can do this. And then you learn how to run a sound desk and you learn how to do that. We've always wanted to be a good supplier, but then as I got older, it was like, there's much more than just being a supplier. We can actually be the full service agency. And then we started putting more plans in place, changing our marketing slightly, trying to make sure that the brand looked good, the brand was right. And I think that was more an over time thing as opposed to at that time, because that was the 90s, or the 2000s. What events in itself wasn't as well thought of, or as well known as it is now. Whereas now you speak to people and go, "Oh, work in events," people will understand what you mean a little bit more. Whereas I think back then people thought that we worked on fairgrounds and stuff like that. So I think there wasn't a massive overarching plan originally. It was just get as many events as you can, build as much as you can, and then that plan came in place.
Yeah, I think the cliche is, if you're in events, you work at Glastonbury. That's kind of that's what you do all year. So let's talk about the different brands that you had. So you had the Demon Wheelers brand, and that was the motorized side. What obviously transpired into creating separate brands that enabled the business to kind of grow? Was it the micro side of things that you were able to focus on a certain niche?
It more came down to, because for a while, we never had sort of proper marketeer working within the business. So it more sort of came down to how we could market the business, because we had Demon Wheelers, which was our company name, and everything like that. But Demon Wheelers very much shouts motorized. And so then you'd have your Demon Wheelers, and then you'd have themed evenings. So we were like, right, if somebody wants to book a themed evening, a Narnia theme in Las Vegas, anything like that, then they're probably going to type into Google themed evenings. And then if we have the website themedevenings.com, that should come up quicker. And then if somebody wants to hire some props, then if we've got party prop hire, and we bought a business that had party prop hire and Prego events. So we bought that business, brought them into the structure. And the thing with well done events, we were like, right, if you want a conference and you want that done well or well done or anything, we were like, right, we'll use that. And we had another brand called Active Days Out, which was, we'd set up another company just for charities, really. That was it was not VAT registered. So if charities wanted to have an event and not have to pay VAT, it helped them. But we had that as like fun days and stuff. And it was just, you were trying to grasp at these different things, but really it was like a separate marketing, separate brand for this, and a separate marketing, separate brand, separate logo. And it was, we thought it was an idea that would help us to get more business. But in hindsight, I think if we'd have kept it all under one banner, as we are now, then you only have to have one company tagline. You only have to have one company logo. You only have to have all these different things. And it's a lot easier to build one brand than it is to build 5 brands.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that. We spoke last year with a guy called Matt from Clownfish Events, and they went through a series of creating Clownfish events, Clownfish entertainment, Clownfish this, Clownfish that. And as he came on the podcast, he literally just decided that they were just going to put it all under one umbrella, because the marketing team were like, which one do we promote? Like, And they actually went out to the team and said, do you know what each of the brands actually do? And they were so confused with which one does what and which one does this. They were actually confusing their team internally. So they were like, okay, we've definitely going to confuse people externally. So we need to clean this up and put it all under one brand.
Yeah, that we found that it's like even the salespeople were like, "Am I selling themed evenings, or is it a Demon Wheelers event? Is it a themed evenings event? Is it a what event is it?" Because they're having some team building, but then they're having the theming in the evening, and then they're having something else, and it's like it's just an event. So if you just put it all under that Wildfire banner, then it try and simplify things as much as possible for everybody, really.
So I wanted to move on to culture, Nathan. As the business has grown, how have you built a culture within Wildfire to deliver that kind of amazing experience every time?
I think and I've just been having a meeting with my head of ops actually, and it's like always, always give more than what you paid for, and that's not necessarily putting on an extra rage buggy or an extra hovercraft or giving them more stuff. It's just the customer service. Like we always want to give phenomenal customer service, and I think when you see the two directors, myself, my father, still going out on events and still working till 4 or 5 in the morning or whatever it is, we don't ever shirk any responsibility or shirk any like work. If I'm doing an event on Wednesday that's finishing at midnight and it's in a brewery in London, so we'll be packing down. We'll probably work until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't, as MD, go right. I'm not going to do that. There's no job that I won't do, and I generally just see my role as facilitating and helping everybody else in the business. And I think, and if you could show that to people that you should all work together as a team, you should give more than what you paid for, show that excellent customer service. And if we sort of stick an arrow in that and say, right, that's how we do it, then everybody else is setting a good example. And that's how we've tried to do it. We've had some amazing stuff over the years. That my head of ops, Gary, he worked for his first started when he was 17. Just working on events, then worked his way up, and then he moved to London, went and worked for Chili Sauce for a while, was head of ops for Chili Sauce. Then COVID happened, and he ended up moving to France. He was a operations manager of ski chalet resort and stuff like that. Then he, because his family from Sheffield, so I had to move back to Sheffield, and he picked me up, and I'm like, it was also an usher at my first wedding. We're really good mates. So it was like, yeah, it's just a perfect fit for someone like that to come in, but he's known the ethos all the way through. And like, what's important to us is that customer service and that feedback from the clients. And when you've got people like that who've been in it a long time, it helps you to sort of embed that to anybody who starts new as well.
Definitely. And yes, it's great to have those sort of team members that are also, you can call friends. And like I said, being an usher at your wedding. But I guess on the flip side, how do you deal with managing people that are very close to you when obviously, you've got to tell them what to do all the time and still maintain that relationship? How have you kind of managed to deal with that over the years?
And he's had his plus points and his bad points. I mean, I will, as I said to you before, I'll be completely honest. So I actually hired my best friend as our sales director, and it didn't even last a year. I had to stack him in the end. And that's never a conversation that anybody wants to have. And I think what you have to do is you have to understand. When I was first coming up in business, I thought like everybody would be like me, and I'm very motivated. I'm very ambitious. I want to rule the world. But my brother, who works for us, I'm on my fourth house that I've lived in. My brother's in the same house that he bought. He'll probably stay in that house until he retires and he moves to Mexico or whatever he's going to do. Whereas he's got no ambition he doesn't want a bigger house, doesn't want anything like that. And then you have to understand that different people are different. But if you can, I always think it's better to just be honest with everybody. If something's not working, you speak to them about it, say how you can support them, what you can do. But for me, as I was coming up, I always was like, everybody should be like me. You should just want to drive. But you can't have everybody like that in the business because you'd all just fall out with each other and you'd wind each other up. So there's a bit of sort of self-learning and self-appraisal of that. But I think, I've had family members work for me that have worked out and some that haven't. I've had friends work for me, some that have worked out, some that haven't worked out. But if you can still keep that relationship, and I would try and give the advice, just if you're working with family members and friends, that once you leave the office, then that's it. You don't talk about work anymore. But that's just not true. It just
Yeah.
doesn't work like that. I will have my parents around for a Sunday roast, and the conversation will still move on to work at some point. But I think it's just trying to be honest with people, and if you can say to them, I don't really want to talk about this now, or I don't want to talk about that now, then you can, at least if you're honest, you know that you've said what you want to say, and if they can give you honest feedback as well, then say maybe you're wrong on this, you're wrong on that. Just try and have an open mind that everybody's different, and that's what makes us all special in our own way.
Yeah, I mean, let's say I consider everyone that works with us as like a friend, so it's always that difficulty when you're in work environment and you're trying to, you obviously put like you say, push the business forward. That you sometimes don't get the same motivation that a business owner has as bringing in an employee. So it is a challenge. How have you managed to kind of motivate the team to stay on like almost on what you want them to achieve?
I think it's setting the right expectation levels. Speaking to people about so, we've coming out of COVID. COVID was fantastic for us, and we did so many virtuals that we were just making a fortune. I've never made so much money, to be honest, which nobody would expect. But then it's keeping the motivation of people so that they feel valued as well, putting incentives in there, trying. For a long time, we were always about, right, people shouldn't work from home, everybody should work from the office, and trying to keep up with different trends, trying to keep up with and making sure that people, because not everybody's motivated by money. Some people are motivated by finishing earlier on a Friday. Some people are motivated from working from home. Some people are motivated from just having fruit and snacks and stuff like that available in the office. And I think for us, it was trying to have honest feedback with the team and say, look, what is it that you want? What is it that you need? What will help you to, because everybody wants to, you don't get anybody really who works for you who wants to do a bad job, but having to get them aligned to what you want. And again, you have to look at what your expectation levels are and whether they are realistic or not. Then I think it's just having open communication.
Yeah. And obviously, when you've got people that are motivated, like you say, by different things, you can't have a one size fits all motivation policy. You do have to tweak things continuously, don't you? There's no way of just saying this is what everybody wants and this is what we're going to do.
Yeah. And some people, like, you'll have the same thing when you have event managers who are going out and running events. Right? You can't say to them, right, you're going to be rewarded by working less hours, because sometimes the event hours are just long. That is just the nature of the beast. But you can reward them by other things, and we're trying to look in various different perks that we can do and different bits, and we're always looking at things like that. We set targets for the company as a whole, as opposed to just for individuals in a team. The sales team have targets and stuff like that, but if we can create something where everybody can be rewarded together. We had our Christmas party in December, nice big black tie thing. Everybody had a fantastic night away and stuff. But if you can have those things that people look forward to, it then gets to different groups working together and gelling together as well on those events. So I think, even though sometimes when you work in events, you think, God, I don't want to go to another event, even though it is your own, I think they are worthwhile to keep everybody together and mix the different departments. So
yeah, definitely. Wanted to move on to some of your challenges that we kind of earmarked before the show. One of them was about letting go. Obviously, I wanted to dial back to, obviously, you're saying you're on an event on Wednesday, it's going to finish at 4 or 5 in the morning. Has there ever been a point where you're like, maybe now's the time that I'm not out on events and I need to be doing other things? Or have you kind of got to that point where you still want to be involved day to day?
I would, ideally for me, I would spend less time on events. We just got a busy week this week, so we just haven't got enough event managers available who can do the certain events that are on and stuff like that. So, and I'm always happy to step in when need to, and For me, I don't think I should be going out and running smaller events, but sometimes when you have that many on, you end up jumping in wherever you can. I always think the managing director becomes the general dog's body, but I honestly believe that if you want your business to grow and to build it up, then you need to spend less time working in the business and more time working on the business. And I've got into the habit of just sending myself emails all the time now. So, like, as a business owner, it's like your mind's just continually going and thinking, right, what about this? What about that? And I was on the treadmill this morning and I'm sending myself an email. I had to slow it right down because otherwise I'd have fallen off. But I was sending myself an email going, right, need to speak about this today. This is a plan for this. And then, I've had an idea about this and I had an idea about that. So I think the more time you can spend sort of letting go of the day to day and getting good people in who can do that helps you to alleviate some of that pressure so that you could then really focus on what's driving the business, culture, strategy, all those things is so important to the business. If you don't have those, in my opinion, you just headed down a road that you don't know where you're actually going to.
Mm. And obviously, work-life balance is always a challenge in the events world. How do you, you're working till 5 a.m., for example, one day. How do you manage that within your work-life balance?
If you ask my wife, she will say not very well. So I think I've never sort of been scared's not the right word, but I enjoy working long hours. I enjoy working hard, but then, I've got a 5-year-old, so missing time with her is not ideal. So I try to get as much done in the week as I can, and we'll always sort of have one day a week. It might not necessarily, and it doesn't always work out like that, but I always try and have at least one day a week that is just strictly family time. Try and spend some additional time with my wife each night and stuff like that. But it is a constant struggle. I would find, especially when you work in events. Is next week I'm off to Abu Dhabi on the 16th and I don't get back till the 20th. So and my wife has a job where she has to travel quite a lot as well. So she's away Monday, Tuesday night. She gets back Wednesday. I've got to be at Heathrow at 9 a.m. on Thursday morning. So we will be like ships passing in the night next week. But it's something I need to get better at. I don't know if you struggle with it as well, but I think just when you've got a family and you've got kids, you want to spend as much time with them as you can. But then in the back of my head all the time as well is I need to make as much money as I possibly can so that I can secure her future. I can give her as much as she wants. If she goes to university, I don't want her to have to take on a loan or anything like that. I'm a long way off from that, but you've got to try and build that up. And that's the sort of thing that drives me a lot. So sometimes I have to compartmentalize it and go, yes, I'm not going to see Ella for 2 days, but I've taken on this additional work that's going to help us to pay for this or pay for that. And it's a struggle, but I think if anybody has cracked the code, and if they can let me know, that'd be good.
I think it's called the entrepreneur's curse, isn't it? You're just constantly thinking of all the problems that you've got, all the problems in the business, and there's no matter how many hours in the day, you're never going to solve them all. And it is very hard to switch off. Like you say, if you can earmark one day a week when you're completely out focused on family time, that's the start, isn't it, of trying to get that kind of work-life balance into play. But it is a very difficult one, and I haven't met many people that have said they've got it right.
I think it's make the moments count as well. So you might not get as many moments, but make sure that you are fully engaged in those moments. But I think it's as well, like you say, entrepreneurs curse. You think about problems you have, but one of my problems is that if I'm at home and I come up with an idea or I get excited about something, I'm not going to bed. I'm working on that, and I'm like, right, typing away. You go, right, the opportunities as well as the problems, and you get excited by them, don't you? So it's a gift and a curse, I suppose.
I use a platform called Asana, which is like a project management tool. And yeah, whenever I have an idea, I literally have my Dan ideas list, and I just literally add it onto there, and then make notes, and then I can sleep again, because that's the problem. I usually wake up and I'm like, I don't know why I'm dreaming about it, but yeah, you suddenly have ideas, and then you're like, oh God, I don't want to forget that. I need to write that down. So it happens to all of us, I tell you.
I was I was in Lisbon for New Year, and I woke up. I said to my missus, I said, "A really weird dream about zombies, and we were under zombie attack." And she went, "What happened?" I was like, "Well, I was dreaming like we had to fight these zombies to get to the van to take it to the event." And she's like, "So you really think when it's under a zombie attack, you're still going to be thinking, right, we've got to put that event on?" I was like, I don't know. I don't know.
I love that. She's like, "What about us? Where were we?" So obviously working, like you say, working on the business, but you need to have the right people to be able to do that. How do you go about kind of making sure you've got the right people in the business?
Probably through a lot of trial and error. It's different people that can take you to different points, I think. When we first started, you would get somebody in the office and they would help on some sales, help on a bit of venue finds, help on this. But we're at the point now where we have separate departments. So we have a sales department, we have a projects department, we have an events department, we have a marketing department, we have a finance department. So it's getting the people, because certain people will be able to progress through the business. But I think the main thing is that they've got the same ethos as you know, work honestly, work diligently, like have a laugh. Everything's not too serious all the time. You've got to make sure you get on with them and you can work together, because as we know, events is a stressful business. So you don't want people who are going to panic all the time. But it's different characters that can. If you have people that are high all the time, and I say in our office, you've got the projects team and the finance team who are probably diligently working away, and marketing as well. And then you've got like the sales team who are like this, up and down with their emotions, and the event managers are like this because they'll come back from the event, they'll be buzzing or they'll be tired, and I think you've just got to try and get that equilibrium. And for me, it's when you meet people, I generally tend to think from your first interview, like our head of sales, Daniel, we had a few interviews with him, but I pretty much knew from the first 5 minutes of having a conversation with him, because you kind of get that click, and when you get that, you kind of know that they're gonna be a good fit with me, and then they're gonna be a good fit with everybody else in the business. And I think it's if you've got the same ethos, um, and that might even be something as simple as just having a chat on a Monday about the football results, or having a chat about something and having something in common with different people, then you can relax around them a little bit more, and then everything flows a little bit easier.
It's that gut feeling, isn't it? I think often that when you're hiring, you know in your head kind of what you're looking for, and CV never tells you much. So when that person comes in, you're like, I think you've got what it takes. Even if the CV may say otherwise, you can only really go off gut because that's all you have. You only have 15, sometimes 20 minutes with someone to ask them a couple of pre-planned questions, and they give you a couple of pre-planned answers, and you're trying to work each other out.
Yeah. And you're gonna make mistakes, and sometimes I remember interviewing somebody for a role, and then I was like, "Oh, they're no good for this, but they might be great for this," and I was completely wrong. But you're gonna make mistakes along the way. But I think it's if you try and do the right thing by people, generally people try and do the right thing by you as well.
Hmm. You mentioned earlier about going into COVID and how it was really successful for you. Obviously, many people listening would probably get confused why, COVID was good for an events company. Events are getting people together. Can you talk about when the first lockdown happened, how you kind of adapted Wildfire to be able to cope with it?
Yeah, so we noticed sort of before we were even in lockdown that normally the phone's ringing, people want to book events, but the phone was ringing, people wanted to cancel or postpone events and stuff like that. So we were like, right, something's happening. And my cousin actually worked in video conferencing at the time. So Noel had said a few things to me about, oh, you should look at these different things. And I was like, we're getting all these cancellations. I don't know what to do, how we're going to deal with it. So I went to the pub with Noel in the afternoon. He just says, oh, come for a beer. I've got a few ideas for you. So he said, and I'd never even heard of Zoom at that point. So he said, we went for a couple of pints. He said, get yourself a Zoom account, get yourself like a Teams account, and just do quizzes or do anything like that or anything along those lines. So before we were even in lockdown, we'd already started doing quizzes, music bingo, online escape rooms. And then when lockdown happened, we just hammered the phones, rang every agency there was, sent emails out to all our clients and stuff like that. And I think we probably did about 50 to 100 events for free, events for free, just to show what they were, because people weren't convinced it would work. And you get Zooms and all these people signing in, and we built a green screen studio and everything like that. So we showed that it was different than if you were hosting a quiz yourself on a Zoom. And then we just started building more and more events out. And then we just got massively busy with it. And the thing to bear in mind is that if we've got a green screen studio, and my brother, who I was talking about earlier, he's quite technically minded and very clever on that side. He doesn't really want to be in the limelight or anything like that. Whereas I'm like, now stick me in front of the green screen, I'm ready to go. Like, let's go. And so he would run the tech, I would stand in front of the green screen, just did that for a few months. And then we just started getting inquiries from America, Australia, India, all over the place. And in December 2020, I think it was when it was first Christmas of lockdown, we did 135 virtual events in that month.
Wow.
So it was pretty, and also your costs, like, if you're going and doing a team build, you're loading a van, you've got to pay the staff to load the van, you've got to drive it down there, you've got the mileage, you've got to set it all up, you've got to have that many staff running it. Some of those events that we were doing, music bingo, you do a music bingo for 400 people, you just need 2 members of staff. And it's just for an hour. And we were charging £550 setup fee and £15 per person. And so if you got 400 people on that event, it's your profits.
Yeah. It was, that is a lot easier business to run, isn't it? Because like you said, if you've got to travel all over the country, do you have one location?
Yeah, we're just based in one location. That's where all the equipment is, one location, yeah.
Yeah. So, instead of having to, like you say, drive to London, deliver the experience, drive back again, you can do another one. You can do another event at 8 o'clock, another event at 9 o'clock, another event at 10 o'clock. And it keeps going.
That's what it was like at Christmas. You had them stacked. And then we ended up having 3 different green screen rooms, so you could do 3 different events at the same time. I think we had like 4 internet lines coming into the business or something like that. But you were thinking, right, say you were getting a minimum of 1,500 quid, you're earning $4,500 an hour. And then that was multiples going over and over again. So it was quite profitable for us. But I still, we still do a few of them now, but I still believe that face-to-face events, you can't compare them.
Yeah, 100% agree on that. Virtual had its time and place when it was needed. And I know in America, I think, the virtual element is still reasonably big because America's just so big, and, they recruited people all over America, so it's very hard for them to get together. But in this country, even if you've recruited people from, a few hours away, it's not too difficult to get them all to one location. And therefore, I think the virtual in this side of the pond is much less than in the US, unfortunately. But, it's like you say, fortunately, because running in-person events is a lot more fun, and I think people get much more from it. This podcast is sponsored by Team Building Experiences. If you're planning a team building event, away day, or corporate event, then check out team-building-experiences.co.uk and state podcast 15 in the comments to receive 15% off your proposal. With COVID over, did you transition completely back to in person straight away, or did you kind of have a hybrid of virtual and in person as kind of the world opened up?
Yeah, we had some clients who wanted to go straight into live events again. Some that wanted to stay with just virtual, and some that wanted to do hybrid ones where you'd have some people in one location, some of it. So it was a complete mix, to be honest. And it was during COVID, we sort of took over the corporate department of chili sauce as well. So we had that to contend with, and lots of business coming in from there. And I think the industry was different after COVID. I think it changed quite a lot. And I think it was just a case of all hands on deck and just try and deal with, because there was a massive splurge of people wanting events after COVID, because so many people just wanted to get out and see people again. Yeah.
And so that partnership was, so chili sauce, they're traditionally a stag and hen agent. Their corporate arm, so they they literally just did they outsource it, or was it like, did you take over that element?
So they would outsource. They would outsource their events normally to different suppliers and things like that. But during COVID, they got hit quite badly because people had so many stag do's booked and hen do's booked and weren't able to go anywhere literally. So they had a fairly strong corporate division, and then we've got a partnership with them where we service that. We deal with the client directly, and then we work with them to pay them a fee and stuff like that. And then we will either service the event ourselves, or we'll pay it out to subcontract it out to other suppliers that we may need if we're too busy or something we don't specialize in. We've had a relationship with chili sauce going back 20 years, something like that, a long time. So we always supplied them back when we used to run stag and hen parties ourselves years ago with all the motorized. So we used to be supplying for them for that and for the corporate, and we just got a good relationship with those guys, and it just works quite well for how we do it, really.
Yeah. I mean, strategic partnerships, I think, especially in events, works incredibly well, because I often find a lot of event companies, there tends to be smaller than your average business. They're usually from a one-man band up to around 15 to 20 people. So they need partnerships to grow, essentially, is what I've found.
100%. I think the industry as a whole has become a lot more collaborative since COVID. I think before people would try and go, oh no, I can do absolutely everything, and I've got this, I've got that, and they wouldn't reveal who the suppliers are. I think we've become a lot more open. I think clients have become more aware of who they're booking, and I think we're part of a group that's launching soon that is something that in our opinion, all the group members is going to be a bit of a disruptor to the industry, is going to sort of blow the industry open a little bit. And that's, we're specialists. We've got different companies who are all specialists in what they do. And it's how we can strategically all work together to also just make sure that we're offering the best in class to our clients all the time, to each other's clients, because it's no good me going, I don't know, 10 years ago going, 5 years ago even going, oh, you want an exhibition stand? Oh yeah, I could do that. And then going into the office going, right, how are we going to build this exhibition stand? Not built one before. What are we going to do? But promise this client we can do it. Whereas if I've got a strategic partnership with an amazing exhibition stand that can also do it where it's completely sustainable, and I go, right, do you want to work with EcoFall, or do you want to work with a company like that? Then you've got a link with them. You go, right, these are guys that we work with. They've got a sustainable exhibition stand that will work with you. Then your recommendation is worth as much as it's worth more, in fact, than you saying you'll do it yourself and then doing a bad job of it. If you recommend somebody who is a specialist at that and they do it really, really well, then it just makes you look good. So there's no reason not to do it.
Yeah, and it's the whole kind of white label side of things, isn't it, as well, that you're able to, like you said, expand your capacity, offer things that you wouldn't normally be able to offer, and look after clients so you keep them in that wheel that they come back again because you've fulfilled a problem. So they'll come to you again when they next have an exhibition stand, an event, some themed evening that they want to, entertainment for, all these sorts of things, and they know to come back to Wildfire.
100%. And I think there's times, where you would compete with somebody, but then you'd also collaborate with somebody, especially in the sort of sector that we're in with the team builds and the theming and the entertainment and events and games. There'd be times where you might be competing with them on one job, but then actually on another job, you might be hiring them to do that job for you. So it's quite incestuous in our industry anyway. So
yeah. So if we kind of look at the present day, so if you were looking to kind of start up a business today, would you say now is a good time?
It's an interesting question. I would say there is no time like the present. If you are thinking about doing something, you just need to go for it. We were having this conversation this morning about, because I said that I've had SLT meetings and stuff and said, right, 2025, 2024, people had a lot to contend with. There's the ongoing war in Ukraine. There's the war in the Middle East. There was the Euros. There was a general election. There was the budget. There was the Olympics. All these things will stop people from booking events. So but 2025, you want to go in with a new lease of life and to be positive and say, right, this is what's going to happen and we're going to make things happen. I think if you have an idea for a business and it's what you want to do, then you may as well just get started as soon as you can. I have my own views on the budget, and I'm not going to get into a political debate right now because I might get cancelled or something. But there's always going to be factors which will stop you from wanting to do that. Do you want to employ more people because national insurance has gone up, or do you want to get more self-employed people? There's various different factors that you can always go down. But for me, I always think if you've got a business idea, the sooner you can get it started, the sooner you can. Everybody's going to have failures and wins and losses and wins, and you make mistakes. And the sooner you can get started on that, instead of it just being something in the back of your mind, I think you should just go for it as soon as you can. I do think there's been a lot of in the world. There's been a lot of factors that can decimate businesses and can have a negative effect. But I think you just sometimes have to rise your head above the parapet and just go, I'm not going to watch the news for 2 weeks. I'm just going to concentrate on what I want to be good. And if you do it well enough, people will still buy it. There's testament with our industry and yourself and Clownfish and other people we're talking about the fact that we've still been doing events with all those factors I've just mentioned in the past year shows that we're all doing a good job.
It's that adaptability, isn't it? It's able to overcome all the obstacles that are continuously thrown at you and still be here. It's the challenge. I think, like you said, exactly the right thing. When it comes to, if you're thinking of starting a business, there's never the perfect time. Like, there's always going to be a reason why it shouldn't be now. But the best thing to do is start, and then you can work out afterwards. And yeah, like you said, with the budget and the pressure on businesses, it's probably one of the hardest times to start. However, it would probably be one of the best times to start, because there'll be a lot of people that are not just give up, but throwing in the towel. But there'll be people that there's new businesses to come into that replace people that have decided that right now is the time for them to walk away. And, that's how business works, isn't it? Things move forward, people move on, and, we all end up kind of growing into a new way of working. If you look at AI and everything that's come over the last couple of years, God knows what's going to happen in the next 3 or 4 years. It's all going to change again, no doubt.
Oh, it will do. And you've got to look at different businesses. You go on LinkedIn before Christmas, there's quite a lot of redundancies and things like that, and companies closing down, as you say, but that creates a gap in the market because they would have serviced somebody before. So there's always going to be opportunities, and whenever there's danger, there's also an opportunity. So you just have to try and make the most of that as you can. And like I say, right now it's hard because there's more taxes and everything like that. But if you start a business, you overcome that. Just think how strong you will be moving forward from that experience.
What would you say is your attitude to risk, Nathan? Would you say you're a risk taker?
Yes. It's, I don't think we would have got where we were without taking some risks, and I have to, my finance manager's part of his job is to stop me taking so many risks sometimes. And I interviewed somebody and I was like, well, why couldn't we even manage the Olympics? We could do that. And then you're like, we probably couldn't do that with this 50. So like, but yeah, there's no end to my ambition and where I want to go to, and I'm willing to put up quite a lot to try and get there.
Yeah, I think that's a common theme that I've noticed, especially I'm on, I think it's episode 36, 37, I can't remember exactly. And yeah, the majority, vast majority, I would say everyone I've spoken to is significant risk takers. They are not on the fence calculating every decision. And we had a board meeting before Christmas, and I did a little sweep round, and it was, who's a risk taker and who's not a risk taker. And it was 3 of us were risk takers and 3 weren't. And I was like, I could have said that before, because, you've always got half of the room are like, let's do it. We'll find a way. And the other half are like pulling back, like, oh my God, you guys are crazy. Like, what are you doing? Like, we haven't mapped it out. We haven't done the maths. We haven't done all this, you know. It's the way you got to run the business, isn't it? You need that push and pull. And if you're the pushing and then you need someone to pull you back a little bit and say, actually, let's rethink this a little bit.
It's when it's busy time as well, isn't it? And they're going, oh, well, I don't know how we're going to get through this week. We've got so many events on, and then get a new inquiry line. And sales team are going, can we do this? And I'm just instantly like, yeah, let's do it. We can make it work. We can do this. But then you've got like the ops team going, how are we going to do this? Should we think about it? And I'm like, but you need that, like you say, you need that push and pull so that you can do it right.
So let's just finish, Nathan, with the future of Wildfire. So you've alluded to, obviously, you've got this new kind of partnership that's potentially going to shake up the industry. Where are you taking Wildfire over the next couple of years?
So for us, we're all about growth. Like we had a meeting at the beginning of the year where we want to grow a lot more. We want to refine what we're doing a little bit. For us, it's always really important that whatever event we put on, we do it to the best of our capabilities. So sort of four things that I've said for the team, 4 pillars for 2025 that I really want the team to stick to are sort of growth, profitability, continuous improvement, and phenomenal customer service. So they're sort of the 4 pillars of 2025 that we want to stick to. But we've been growing for quite a few years. You sort of going peaks and troughs, don't know, different things that happen. Last year was an up and down year. You'd have 1 month where you'd be really busy, next month not so much. And so for us, we just want to get that more sustained growth so that we're planning it out over the next few years. We're planning on growing the team. We've already got job ads coming out this week. So the main thing is to grow without losing any of the quality of service. So for me, I'd rather stay the size we are and make sure we're doing phenomenal events with phenomenal people, as opposed to going, right, we've gone from 15 to 50 people, but the events are all crap and the equipment's not as good and everything like that. So for us, we want to make sure that while ever we're growing and investing and making more money, we're investing that back into the business and making sure that the equipment is top notch and the people who are presenting it top notch and the branding is right and everything from, we did a rebrand with all these like winky faces on everything and we make it fun, we do it better. We have to keep to that company ethos. So I kind of see my job as managing director of helping the other heads of department and supporting them as much as I can, but try and steer that ship towards that magical island of lots of profit and happy customers.
Yeah, it's that island that is very far away sometimes, but you can see coming closer year after year. So I've got two final questions, Nathan. First one is, what's the best business advice you've ever received?
The best business advice, I would say, from a good friend of mine, Gav Farley, who's the CEO of Assemble. He said to me once, I was talking about trying to take over everything and I could do exhibition stands, I could do this, I could do that, I'd do that. And he just went, you can't be everything to everyone. And so just concentrate on what you're good at and be the best that you are at that. And don't try and like dilute. But I know I'm really good at sales. I know I'm great as an event manager, but the best I am at is the person who's doing the strategy and the leadership of the business. And that's where I need to concentrate most of my skill set onto. So you can't be everything to everyone. And that is part of the beauty of the group that we're doing. But the exhibition stand that I talked about, or me trying to do AI or augmented reality, AR, anything like that, I'm not going to be able to do that. But if I've got a partner who can, and I can maintain that relationship, which is something I'm good at with my client, then you're not being everything to everyone, but you are just still making sure that they're happy. So
that's good. That's good advice. That I think I was told something similar by someone. They called it KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And I try and keep reminding myself of that.
I like that one. I'll have to remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. Final question, Nathan. What podcasts or people have you listened to recently that have kind of inspired you or made you kind of think differently?
And so I listen to quite a few political podcasts, things like that as well. One podcast that I listened to recently, it was only a matter of a couple of days ago actually, was I listen to Leading, which is Roy Stewart and Alistair Campbell. They have The Rest is Politics, and then they have Leading as well. And they had Bill Clinton on there. And I was with what happened in the election. I was a bit surprised at what the Democrats were doing. I thought they made a few mistakes, things like that. But for somebody who's quite a bit older, just you always have views of Americans sometimes of politics and stuff like that. And I just thought the openness of how he was in his older years. I think as you get older, sometimes you can get bitter or you can get stuck in your own views on how things should be. And I think his willingness to learn and to learn from his mistakes, and even he was saying what the Democrat Party should do to learn from their mistakes and how they could have overcome Donald Trump on different things. And I just found it really refreshing as an older man that was willing to be quite open and willing to learn and willing to make mistakes and then try and rectify those things and try to get deep. He's a very knowledgeable man. He's done lots of amazing things for the world. But for him to actually be quite humble about that as well at the same time, I just found it quite a refreshing podcast. I listened to that on Saturday. That was an hour and a bit long. And I just thought for somebody who was in was the most powerful man in the world for 8 years, to be as humble as he was and just be as I said, willing to learn from mistakes. I think that's a very admirable quality.
Yeah, definitely. And I do like listening to different podcasts, and a variety of people often come across, I think, in podcasts very different to my perception of how I thought they were going to come across. And someone like Bill Clinton, who's been president and done so much with his life as well. I can imagine if he can learn from his mistakes, then it's a lesson for all of us, eh?
Yeah. And I think that's a great thing about podcasts, isn't it? You might listen to some podcasts and you might go in with a view of that person already, and then when you listen to it, you can learn so much from that. So,
100%. So Nathan, loved chatting today. How can listeners find out more about yourself and also Wildfire Agency?
So if you go to our website, it is spreadlikewildfire.co.uk, and that will have lots of information about us. Probably the social media platform that I use the most is Instagram, and I'm just Nathan P. Angus at Instagram, where you'll find a mix of events, pictures of my daughter, and red wine and steaks. My main loves.
I love red wine and steak, so that's a great choice. Lovely, Nathan. Thank you very much for coming on the show today. I've really enjoyed it. Really good conversation, and learned a lot about your wildfire, and it sounds like a really exciting journey you've got ahead of you as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
Lovely. So if you enjoyed the podcast, if you could do one thing for me today, if you can like, follow and subscribe to the channel on your podcast listening app, enables us to grow the show. Thank you.